$47 land purchase everyone laughed at sat untouched for 24 years, until a coal company made a fatal mistake on the day of Ramon Delgado's wife's funeral. What they didn't know would cost them millions. The lawyer called on a Tuesday. His name was Aldrich Pratt, and he was not a man who panicked. But he was panicking now. He was senior counsel for Meridian Capital Group. $2.3 billion in active projects, offices in Houston, Denver, and Dallas. The kind of firm that did not get stopped by a 40-acre strip of dirt in South Texas, but it was stopped because of Ramon Delgado. Pratt had been trying to reach his client, Douglas Fitch, for 3 hours. Fitch was Meridian's senior director of land acquisition. He was the one who had built this project. He was the one who had assured the board that the corridor was clear. He was the one who, 24 years earlier, had laughed out loud at a county auction in LaSalle County, Texas, when a quiet man in a yellow work shirt bid $47 on a piece of land nobody wanted. Now that $47 piece of land had shut down a $340 million pipeline project. Pratt hung up and called the contractor. The contractor said they had stopped grading. He said there was a claim on the access corridor. He said nobody had flagged it before they broke ground. He said that was not his problem. Pratt hung up again. He sat in his Houston office on the 14th floor and stared at a parcel map on his screen. The strip was outlined in red. It was 12 feet wide and 0.4 miles long. It ran through the only viable corridor in a 12-mile radius. It belonged to Ramon Delgado. It had belonged to Ramon Delgado since 1999. Cotulla, Texas, March 1999. The LaSalle County tax auction was held in the county fairgrounds building on a Wednesday morning. There were folding tables near the back wall, a coffee pot on a card table by the door, 4 locals in the front row who had come for the agricultural parcels. Ramon sat in the third row. He was 39 years old. He drove a 1991 Silverado with 180,000 miles on it. He worked as a machinist at a valve manufacturing plant in Loretto. He wore a yellow work shirt because it was his day off, and he had not bothered to change. He had driven 47 miles to be here. He had eaten a ham sandwich in the parking lot while other men drank coffee inside. His wife, Cecilia, had packed the sandwich. She had also packed 2 pens in the front pocket of his shirt because she knew he would lose one. She had not come with him. Their youngest had a fever, and someone had to stay. He had a yellow legal pad on his knee. He had been to 2 auctions before this one. He had not bid on anything at either one. He had just watched. He had just taken notes. He was not here to learn this time. Douglas Fitch was there by accident. He worked for a smaller firm back then, doing land assembly for clients he was not allowed to name. He had come for Lot 22. He bought it for $4,200 before lunch. He was finishing his coffee when the auctioneer called Lot 14. 40 acres, flat, cedar brush, no road access. Back taxes of $47. County had flagged it as landlocked and agriculturally worthless. Starting bid was $47. No one moved. Then Ramon raised his hand. Fitch watched him. He looked at the other men in the room. One of them caught his eye and shrugged. Fitch laughed. Out loud. Not quietly. He said something to the man beside him. He said it low enough that Ramon could not hear the words, but loud enough that Ramon could hear that it was a joke. The auctioneer said sold for $47. He handed Ramon a receipt. Ramon folded it into quarters. He slid it into the front pocket of his yellow work shirt. He stood up. He did not look at Fitch. He did not look at anyone. He walked to the table, signed the transfer document, and walked out the door. Fitch finished his coffee. He forgot about Lot 14 by the time he reached his truck. Ramon drove north on Highway 85 and then pulled off onto a county road. He drove slowly. He was not lost. He knew exactly where he was going. He pulled up to the southeast corner of a flat 40 acres and stopped the engine. He sat there for a while. He looked at the land. He looked at the tree line to the north. He looked at the low ridge running northeast, barely visible, just a gentle rise above the surrounding brush. He pulled out the receipt and unfolded it. $47. He put it back in his pocket. He pulled out the yellow legal pad and drew a small rectangle. He drew a line coming off the southeast corner. He wrote a number next to the line. He circled it. He did not say anything out loud. He did not celebrate. He started the truck and drove home to Cecilia and the sick child and the ham sandwich she had saved for him in case he had not eaten. He already knew something. Nobody at that auction had known it with him. He had not learned it that morning. He had found it 4 months earlier, in a building most people in LaSalle County had stopped visiting. He had not told anyone yet, not even Cecilia. He would tell her soon. But first he needed one more thing confirmed. If this story already has you hooked, you have not seen anything yet. Hit subscribe right now, because what Ramon found next is the kind of thing that rewrites everything. October 1998, LaSalle County Public Library, back reading room. Ramon was the only person there on a Saturday afternoon. He had a table to himself, a stack of commissioner meeting minutes from the 1950s, and a cup of coffee in a paper cup that had gone cold an hour ago. The librarian had not checked on him since noon. The overhead light buzzed faintly. Outside, the parking lot was empty. He did not mind any of this. His father-in-law, Aurelio, had taught him how to read commissioner minutes the way other men read box scores. Slowly, carefully, without assuming anything. Aurelio had been a surveyor for 31 years. He had a saying, "The land does not lie. The paperwork sometimes does." Aurelio had died in 1994. He left Ramon a box set of LaSalle County plat maps 1938 through 1981 and one instruction written on a notacard tucked inside the box. Never trust a landlocked parcel to stay landlocked. Ramon had kept the notacard. It was in the front pocket of his work shirt. Behind the pens, he found the resolution on the third Saturday. He had been through 1948, 1949, 1950, 1951, and most of 1952 without finding anything that matched. He had come back 2 more Saturdays after that, working forward through 1953, 1954, 1955. On the third Saturday, he opened the folder for June 1956, Resolution 22C. June 14, 1956, LaSalle County Commissioners Court. Subject: formal abandonment of County Road 118A. He read it twice. Then he read it a third time, slower. County Road 118A was a half-mile dirt road running northeast from State Highway 85 to the edge of the old Harlan grazing allotment. The county had stopped maintaining it in 1941. By 1956, it was overgrown and unused. Nobody objected. The resolution passed unanimously. Ramon set the folder down. He picked up his legal pad. Under Texas law, he had read this 2 weeks earlier, in a Property Rights Digest at the same library, when a county formally abandons a public road, the right-of-way does not vanish, it reverts. It goes back to the landowner who held the adjacent property at the time of abandonment. The adjacent landowner in 1956 had been Fletcher Harlan. Fletcher Harlan's estate was subdivided in 1971. Lot 14, the piece that became the 40 acres the county would auction off for $47 in back taxes, had passed through 3 owners before the county took it back. Nobody had caught the reverter. Nobody had gone back to 1956. The right-of-way was 12 feet wide. It ran from the southeast corner of Lot 14 to Highway 85. It was 0.4 miles long. Lot 14 was not landlocked. Lot 14 had road access, on the books, still alive, never dissolved. Ramon wrote the road number on his legal pad. He wrote the resolution date. He drew a rough sketch of the lot with the access corridor marked. He circled the southeast corner. He sat still for a while. Then he turned to a new page and wrote 2 words, mineral rights. He drove home. Cecilia was at the kitchen table when he came in. The kettle was on. She looked up. He sat down across from her and spread the legal pad between them. She looked at the sketch. She looked at the circled corner. She said, "Is it good?" He said, "I think so." She said, "How sure?" He said, "Close." She nodded and got up to pour the hot water. That was the whole conversation. Over the next 3 months, Ramon made 2 more trips to the library and 1 phone call to Pete Vasquez, a retired surveyor who had worked alongside Aurelio for 11 years. He asked Pete one question. Had anyone ever pulled a mineral survey on the old Harlan allotment parcels? Pete said no. He said the county had always written them off. He said nobody had bothered because the surface was worthless. Ramon thanked him and hung up. He went back to the library. He found the geological survey in November 1998. It was a state document filed in 1987, Standard Basin Assessment, not indexed under any of the parcel numbers for the Harlan allotment. It used a different coordinate system than the county plat maps. That was why nobody had matched them. Ramon matched them. He sat at the library table with the geological survey in one hand and Aurelio's 1962 plat map in the other. He converted the coordinates on a scratch sheet. He drew the overlap carefully, measuring distances with his thumb against the scale bar. The subsurface deposit ran northeast from the Nueces River drainage corridor. It ran directly beneath lots 12 through 16 of the Harlan allotment. Lot 14 sat in the middle of it. The survey classified the deposit as containing placer, gold concentration, and rare earth trace elements. It used cautious language, the kind of language geologists use when they do not want to overstate. But the numbers in the table at the back were not cautious. Ramon wrote the page number down. He wrote the deposit classification. He wrote the coordinate range. He drove home. He sat at the kitchen table with the plat map spread out and the geological survey open and a cup of coffee that Cecilia set down beside him without being asked. He drew the deposit corridor onto his sketch of Lot 14. He drew the access road from the southeast corner to Highway 85. He drew a dotted line where any pipeline or processing corridor would eventually need to go. All 3 lines converged in the same place. He closed the notebook. He looked at the hand-drawn map for a long moment. He did not say anything out loud. He did not need to. Any developer building in that corridor would eventually face one fact. There was only one viable route, and the route ran through 12 feet of land that, if the reverter held, belonged to whoever bought Lot 14 for $47 in back taxes. The auction was 4 months away. The man at the door was young, polished, and smiling. He said his name was Carter Webb. He had a card that said land consultant. He had a clipboard with a single sheet of paper on it and a pen already uncapped. He said he represented a regional energy firm evaluating corridor opportunities in LaSalle County. He said Ramon's name had come up. He said the firm was prepared to offer $18,000 for the 40 acres, which was well above the current assessed value of $2,300. He said it like he was doing Ramon a favor. Ramon was 47. He had owned Lot 14 for 8 years. He had mowed it twice a year with a borrowed brush hog, paid $112 in annual property taxes every April without fail, and kept the corner markers clear. Nobody had asked about the land in all that time. He looked at Webb's card. He looked at the clipboard. He said, "I appreciate you coming out." Webb said, "It's a fair number for a strip that size." Ramon said, "I'm not interested in selling." Webb blinked. He had not prepared for that answer. He said he could take a counteroffer back to his client. Ramon said there was no counteroffer. He thanked him again and stepped back inside. The door closed. Webb stood on the porch for a moment. Then he walked back to his truck and drove out. Ramon went to the kitchen table. He opened his notebook, the green one Cecilia had given him the Christmas after the auction, with his initials pressed into the cover. He wrote the date. He wrote Webb's name. He wrote $18,000. He drew a line through it. The call came from a woman named Linda Garza. She worked in the LaSalle County Planning Office. She was professional and efficient, and she said the county was mapping a new FM road extension through the southern corridor. She said Ramon's parcel fell inside the preliminary alignment. She said the county could offer fair market value plus a 12% relocation adjustment. Based on current assessed rates, that came to $74,000. Ramon was at the kitchen table when the call came. Cecilia was washing dishes. She did not turn around. He said, "I'm not looking to sell right now." Garza said the county would follow up. He said, "That's fine." He hung up. Cecilia dried her hands. She said, "County?" He said, "Yes." She said, "Getting closer?" He said, "Yes." She went back to the kitchen. He opened the notebook and wrote $74,000. He drew a line through it. 12 miles away, in a conference room above a parking garage in San Antonio, Douglas Fitch was not calm. He had spent 3 years assembling 280 acres in that corridor. He had used 4 different LLCs so nobody would connect the parcels. He had paid top dollar for every piece except one. One parcel kept coming up clean, no contact, no response, no agent who could get a meeting. His lawyer sent a memo in November 2014 that said the access issue was manageable as long as the Delgado strip remained uncontested. Fitch underlined the word manageable and circled it twice. He told his lawyer to find another route. The lawyer came back 6 weeks later and said there was no other route. Fitch told him to try harder. Mariana was 12 the first time she walked Lot 14 with her father. She wore rubber boots because it had rained the day before, and the caliche was soft. She asked why the corner had a metal stake in it. Ramon said, "That marks the boundary." She said, "Whose boundary?" He said, "Ours." She said, "Why does ours matter?" He said, "Because of where it sits." She thought about that for a while. Then she said, "So the stake is important," he said. "The paper that put the stake there is important." She nodded like she understood. She did not understand yet, but she would. Douglas Fitch drove to Cotulla himself in the spring of 2019. He wore a 3-piece suit. He carried a leather briefcase. He knocked on Ramon's door at 9 in the morning. Ramon let him in without saying much. He poured 2 cups of coffee. He set one on the table in front of Fitch. Fitch said he did not know if Ramon remembered him from the auction. Ramon said he remembered him fine. Fitch said he was now with Meridian Capital. He said Meridian was planning a significant energy infrastructure project in the region. He said Ramon's parcel was essential to the corridor, and Meridian was prepared to offer $340,000. He let the number sit. Ramon picked up his coffee cup. He said, "I'm not interested in selling." Fitch said he could go to $400,000 before he left the county. Ramon said the number was not the problem. Fitch set his cup down. He said, "What is the problem?" Ramon said, "There is no problem. I just don't want to sell." Fitch sat there for a moment. He was not used to this. He had been buying land for 20 years. Everyone eventually sold. It was only a question of price. He said he would be in touch. Ramon walked him to the door. He watched the rental car turn out of the driveway. He went back inside and wrote $340,000 in the notebook. He drew a line through it. Cecilia got sick in 2022. She never once asked him to take the money. Not when the medical bill started. Not when the treatments meant she could not drive. Not when the house got quiet in a way it had not been quiet before. One evening, near the end, she asked him one question. She said, "You still have the paper?" He said, "I still have the paper." She nodded. 6 months after the funeral, on a cool October morning, Ramon was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee. The phone rang. He looked at the screen. The number was from Houston. He looked at it for a moment. Then he picked up. The voice on the line belonged to Aldrich Pratt. He said he was calling on behalf of Meridian Capital. He said Meridian understood there had been some past difficulty establishing contact. He said Meridian was now in a position to make a final and substantial offer for the Delgado parcel. He said the number was $610,000. Ramon said, "I'm not selling." There was a pause on the line. Pratt said, "Mr. Delgado, the project is already under construction." Ramon said, "I know." Pratt said, "There's a crew working inside the corridor right now." Ramon said, "I know that too." He set the phone down on the table and did not hang up. He left it there and went to the back room and opened the bottom drawer of the kitchen desk. He pulled out a manila envelope. He had not opened it in 4 years. Mariana drove down from Austin on a Friday. She was 34 years old. She was a licensed petroleum land attorney. She had taken that path for reasons she had never fully explained to anyone, though her father had his theory. She walked into the kitchen and set her bag on a chair. She looked at the table. Ramon had already laid everything out. The 1956 Commissioner Resolution, the reverter analysis, the 1987 State Geological Survey with the coordinate conversion written in pencil in the margin, the 2014 survey instrument filed with the county clerk referencing the access corridor and the mineral rights in the legal description, 63 years of annual tax receipts, every single one paid on time, never delinquent, and at the top of the stack, folded into quarters, crease lines 24 years old, a receipt for $47. Mariana sat down. She read in silence for a long time. Then she looked up. She said, "The mineral rights were never transferred." Ramon said, "No." She said, "Not in 1971. Not at any of the other sales." He said, "No." She said, "And the tax foreclosure only cleared back taxes. It didn't extinguish the mineral estate." He said, "That's what Aurelio always said." She looked at the geological survey. She looked at the deposit coordinates. She looked at the map she had helped him draw when she was 12 years old, still folded in the back of his notebook, the corner stake marked with a small penciled X. She said, "They built on top of an active mineral claim," Ramon said, "and they dumped coal on it." She closed her eyes for 1 second. Then she picked up her phone. The hearing was held in LaSalle County District Court on a Thursday in February 2024. Pratt had filed an abandonment challenge. The legal theory was that Ramon had never meaningfully developed the land and had therefore abandoned his mineral claim through inaction. It was not a strong argument, but it was the only argument Meridian had left. Mariana set 3 documents on the table. The first was the 1972 mineral rights deed from the original Harlan Estate subdivision, filed, recorded, never transferred at any subsequent sale, still attached to Lot 14. The second was the 2014 survey instrument, referencing the mineral rights in its legal description, a document that Ramon had paid $2,200 to file, in his own name with the county clerk, 10 years before any of this came to court. The third was a binder, 63 annual tax receipts, one for every year from 1999 to 2023. Each one paid in full, each one bearing the county's own stamp. Mariana said the county taxed this parcel every year. That means the county recognized it as an active, non-abandoned property for 63 consecutive years. "You cannot argue abandonment on a parcel your own government kept billing," she said it quietly. She did not repeat it. The judge ruled in 4 minutes. Pratt reached for his phone before he was out of his chair. The negotiation lasted 11 days. Pratt opened with another lump sum. This time he said $1.2 million. He said it was generous given the legal complexity. Ramon shook his head. Pratt said $1.5 million. Ramon said, "I'm not selling the land." Pratt stopped. He said, "What do you want?" Ramon said, "A lease. A permanent mineral rights lease with a surface access easement. Monthly payments, adjusted for inflation every 5 years, transferable to my heirs." Pratt said that was not standard. Ramon said he was aware. Pratt said his client would not agree to an open-ended arrangement. Ramon said, "Then your client's pipeline stays frozen." Meridian agreed on day 11. The royalty rate was 25% of gross extraction revenue from the alluvial deposit beneath the Harlan corridor. The geological estimate put extractable value at $8. $1 million over 20 years. Monthly payments began at $4,200 and adjusted upward on the first of every 5th year. The easement was permanent. It transferred to Mariana upon Ramon's death. On top of that, $2.1 million in coal remediation costs for the trespass, $180,000 in legal fees and damages, Paid in full within 60 days. Mariana called him with the final number on a Tuesday morning. He answered on the second ring. She said they accepted everything. He said, "All right then." He set the phone on the table. Cecilia's kettle was still on the stovetop. Mariana reached over and filled it from the tap and set it on the burner. Neither of them said anything. The kettle came to a boil. The signing was at the LaSalle County Clerk's office on a Wednesday. Ramon drove his truck. He wore the same yellow work shirt. He brought the manila envelope. He signed where Mariana pointed. The clerk stamped the easement and handed him the copy. He walked out to the parking lot. He sat in his truck for a while. He opened the notebook to the last clean page. The third notebook in the series, the green cover worn soft at the edges after 24 years. He wrote the date. He wrote easement filed, mineral lease recorded, coal removed, land stays. He closed the notebook. He set it on the passenger seat. He looked out through the windshield at the flat South Texas sky. Douglas Fitch read about the settlement in the Catulla Record 3 days later. A 6-paragraph story on page 4. His name was not in it. He had no comment. He did not laugh. 4 men who had been at that 1999 auction were still living in LaSalle County. 2 of them read the article over breakfast. Neither one mentioned the man in the yellow work shirt who had bid $47 on a piece of land they had all walked past. They did not need to. Some men collect land. Ramon Delgado collected patience and the right paperwork to back it up. If you were in that auction in 1999 and that final deal landed on the table today, would you take the $1.5 million lump sum, or would you hold out for the monthly payments that never stop? Drop your answer in the comments. We read every single one.